Hello, my name is Wesley Bellman, and I am a systems engineer at Palo Alto Networks, covering federal customers. And today I will be discussing the clientless VPN feature of the Palo Alto Next Generation Firewall. Specifically, I will just go over the clientless VPN interface, what specifically it does. I will discuss briefly how the clientless VPN is set up within the firewall's management graphical user interface. And I will also demonstrate how you can restrict access to specific applications based on who the user is within the firewall itself. So let's get started. Right now I have the clientless VPN interface up. As you can see, the clientless VPN gives you a application portal. Right here I have 8 applications which I have chosen to list. I'm logged in as user Wesley, as you can see over here. I've made myself an admin user, so I'm able to see and access all the applications here. And if I go over to my firewall management, you can actually see that I'm actually managing my firewall from using the clientless VPN. So I actually access the clientless VPN and then use that to actually manage the firewall on which the clientless VPN is running. I do this just to add a layer of security to accessing my firewall. However, I do have a way to access the firewall. If this does go down, I have a different way that I can set that up, and I highly recommend doing that because you wouldn't want a misconfiguration here to completely lock you out of your firewall. So you do want an out-of-band management capability as well. So here I am in the firewall. So let's start by looking at the subscriptions. You'll want to make sure, so if you go to device and then you go down to licenses, you want to make sure that you have the proper license subscription to use clientless VPN. So you'll need a gateway license. You see I have the Global Protect gateway license, and this is the license that's necessary to enable clientless VPN. This license gives you access to several other features which you can see on the Palo Alto website, such as host information profile checks, which in the federal government we call comply to connect, and several other Global Protect features. So definitely check out which features you get with the Global Protect gateway license, which other features you get. One of them is the clientless VPN. So something else we'll check out here is if you go to dynamic updates, also under the device tab, you can see that one of the dynamic updates will be the Global Protect clientless VPN, and you'll see that I have installed the latest version. Unfortunately, I always have to flip this over. It likes to default to put the latest version on the bottom, but I like to have it on top. So the latest version is 95.239. And it is currently what I have currently installed. You can see that checked here. So I have the latest version installed, and you can see that was updated today, August 12th. So that's the basic configuration for Global Protect clientless VPN. You'll need to make sure you have it installed here, as well as you have the proper license before you can get started. So the next tab to check out for clientless VPN will be network. And you will need to have a Global Protect portal set up. As you can see, I already have one set up here, and this can be your same portal. If you're using Global Protect as a regular VPN, you can use that same portal, and that's how I have it set up. I just have a single portal. So if I click this portal name here, and then the main thing I want to do is go to clientless VPN. Then here you can see I've enabled clientless VPN by checking this box, giving it the same host name as the portal, and which it just says to the Global Protect portal. Make sure you put the host name there. So as you can see, it's the same host name as what's up here, gp.paloaltoairforce.com. I've set up a DNS proxy, and then I've set up a login lifetime and an inactivity timeout. So this will be important. You need to see the applications here. What's important to note about this is you can't you need to actually put here application groups. If you just put a single application here, then in your portal, so if I go back to this portal, it'll only display one application. So you're not able to just list here the applications that you want to see in your portal. You actually have to put an application group, which I'll show in a minute. So as you can see, I'm an admin user as Wesley, and I have access to all applications. I have two other application groups here. I have a SecOps group and a regular group, and yeah, those are the SecOps and regular groups of applications. So there's three different types of portals I can see. I can see either the SecOps portal, the regular portal, or the admin portal, and you can configure as many of these as you need for your specific environment. One thing to note here is this really, and I'll show this later, but this actually only affects which applications are displayed. This itself does not affect which applications a user can access. That is something that I will demonstrate in this video, how to restrict that access using security policies. And there's additional settings here, which I won't go into in this video. However, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about these additional settings here. But these are the main settings that I do want to show, that I do want to show in this demonstration. So I will not change anything here, and that has my that has it all set up properly. So let's look at the applications. These are the applications again. So I'll go back to this portal. These are applications that can be put here in this portal, in this application portal. These are not all of the applications that you can access. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that here you have an application URL, and so let me show you a quick example. So here you don't see YouTube anywhere, right? But if I go here and I access YouTube, then I still am able to access YouTube. There's nothing blocking me from accessing YouTube. It's just not actually shown in the portal. So everything I'm showing here as far as these applications, application groups, and what I showed before just relates to which applications are actually shown in this portal, not which applications you can access. We'll close YouTube. So now if I go to clientless app groups, remember, it is very important that you do create application groups. You won't be able to just list applications individually within that portal's clientless VPN configuration. You'll have to actually put those applications in application groups and then assign which users or user groups can access those applications. So this is the way to do that. So again, I have three application groups: all applications, which is for the admin user; SecOps, which is for the SecOps users; and regular for just regular users on this configuration. So that is the basic setup of the GlobalProtect clientless VPN. And I will go to monitor. And here you can see I have a regular user, which I've called regular01. And I will go over to an incognito tab. The reason I do that is because here my admin user will not be logged in, and I will log in as regular01. As you can see here, this is all customizable. I put the US Air Force logo here. I could change this background. I can change this title. You can really modify this to your own needs. And it's pretty simple to do that. It doesn't really require any coding. Just requires a simple configuration file, adding images to that. So we'll sign in here. And it will log me in. Again, this is all customized. I didn't point that out earlier, but I've added this from the Air Force website and put US Air Force here, so this is all customizable. So let's look at the configuration again just to validate that this is in fact what you see. So like it says, the regular user can see Google and can see Palo Alto's Tech Docs here, right? And that's exactly what you see here. So if I go back to monitor and I monitor regular user 01, you can see what this looks like in the traffic logs. So you can see I have a rule for global protect infrastructure. Let me actually show you these rules before we go to monitor. So global protect infrastructure is where I allow anyone to access my global protect interface, which is at 10.0.140, using the global protect application, SSL, or web browsing. And I allow that from anywhere within the internet. And then for admin users, I allow them to go anywhere, but regular users are only allowed to with specific application types. So I will click that. This uses the URL filtering feature of the Palo Alto firewall to determine if a URL falls into one of these categories. So this is really useful if you only want your users to access specific types of URLs. Maybe you don't want them to access social media or adult content from your corporate network, or while accessing your corporate network here. And so you can limit to specific types of URLs like this. So I've only allowed access to these types of URLs that you can see here. So that's really a useful feature of URL filtering. So that one I allow. See, that's an allow rule. I allow those types of applications. I also do allow YouTube specifically, and then I deny access to anywhere else. And you can see here, I can configure the rule to be both the global protect zone as well as the global protect clientless zone. So if someone logs in using global protect as a regular VPN, they're going to be subject to the same policies as with clientless. However, that could be configured so those are separate policies depending on how you want to do that within your own network. I will go back to monitor, so now you know what those rules are. So you can see that specific application types I'm allowing, and let me actually refresh this. Okay, so specific application types I'm allowing. So there's either the global protect infrastructure, which is just logging in to global protect. It still does mark that as the regular user, and it does actually show my source IP. So that's good too, where if you hit this, it shows this is my source IP. Oh, this is the wrong one, I apologize. So if you hit this one, it shows my source IP as my public IP that I'm using right now on this computer, but it also shows my NATed IP. So Global Protect Clientless VPN does not support tunneling, and so therefore your NATed IP will always be the IP of that specific interface that you access the clientless VPN on. So NATed IP is this 10.0.140, but it does preserve your source IP, so that can be helpful if you want to determine where that user is actually coming from, rather than it just all being down to this NATed IP. So that's really helpful. Okay, so let me show you how we can lock down users' access to specific applications. So application URL. So I have the XOR application. This is another Palo Alto Networks software. It's called Cortex XOR, and I have an XOR instance set up in this network. And if I go here as a regular user, I can hit go. And so in this case, I know that XOR is at 10.0.0.67, which is this address right here. Great, so now I can see the latest logs for regular 01, and you can see it's accessing 10.0.0.67. That's allowed through my access to specific application types. But do I really want a regular user to access this application, right? And in some cases, no, right? So this is just defense in depth, in the sense that the more users that you give access to specific applications, the more likely it is that if those credentials are compromised, or if somehow someone is able to get access to that user's account or to a specific device, then they can pivot into another service. So I highly recommend locking down access to applications, not just with this authentication here, since that's just a single security control, but adding the additional security control of actually locking it down at the network level. And so the way that we would do that, if you're using the clientless VPN, is to add a policy. And so policies here, so very similar to how here I first allow access and then I deny access. I'm going to do that with the XOR IP as well. So I will add a policy, which will be labeled allow secops to XOR. So this really can be from anywhere. The main thing is you want to make sure that the source user is going to be this the SOAR group. So if you remember from my user groups that I had SOAR and I had firewall as part of SecOps. Actually, I'll change this. I'll only give the SOAR people access to XOR. So I'll make it SOAR. I won't give firewall admins access to XOR because they don't need that. For destination zone, I'll do any zone, but I'm going to make sure that address is the 10.0.0.67, and that was the specific address of XOR. If you're using DHCP, you're going to want to set this up to make sure that that this address can change as your IP changes. But in this setup I have here, I have XOR as this static local IP. So this policy will work here. So this is from SOAR accessing this address. So that's sufficient. I could add the application if I wanted to lock it down a little bit further, but I will keep these as any, and then I'll make sure that it's an allow rule because we do want the SOAR people to be able to access that SOAR application. And I won't set up any of these other settings. It is an allow rule, so if I'm worried about if I want to add additional protections, I could configure a profile to do antivirus, vulnerability protection, etc. This would again add another layer of security so that if someone pivoted into an account and then they were trying to run exploits against that source server, then that could be caught using threat prevention, using these and Wildfire, using these specific subscriptions. This time I won't configure that right now, but that's just to show how your Palo Alto firewall can help you configure multiple layers of security when accessing a specific application. So hit OK. So allow SOAR users to XOR. So I'll move this up to here. So we still want to make sure that admin users can access anywhere. I don't want to negate that rule with this. So I'll hit the allow SOAR to XOR, and then I'll say block all to XOR. And so the source will be any. The destination will still be that 10.0.0.67. And I will leave these things unconfigured. Make sure that this action is now, you can either do deny or drop. I will do deny because this will be someone who has access within the network, so I have no issue with them kind of knowing that they don't have access to that application. That's also helpful when they get that they're denied. If it's a user that is supposed to access it, then they can ask their IT department to give them that requisite access. Versus drop will just kind of time out and they won't know if it's network issues or if they don't have access. So I will do deny rather than drop here. Okay. And yeah, so it actually defaulted to put this above the allow rule, but we want to make sure this is below the allow rule. just basic firewall configuration. It goes down the rules. So I want to make sure first it hits the allow rule for those who are in the SOAR group, and then for anyone in any other group, it blocks and it does that deny. I will now commit this configuration. Commit. Wait for it to commit. Great, and the configuration has been successfully committed. We'll now close this. I will go back to where I'm logged in here, close this tab. Let me refresh just in case. All right, still logged in as the regular user. So now let's try again to hit this URL. While it's loading, we can go see what's happening on the firewall here right now. So I literally just created that rule right in front of you, and it's already taking effect. So I will close this. So let's make sure that the SOAR users are actually able to properly access. So we will go to SecOps 01. Log in as one of the SecOps user, and this user is both a SOAR user as well as a firewall user, so you can access firewall management. And since I added this to this person's application portal, they can actually see it here or type it in here, but since it's here, I'll just click this. And then if we wanted to monitor this, we can change the filter in the Palo Alto traffic logs from regular 01 to SecOps 01. So then we're monitoring the traffic specific to that user. You can see that allow the SOAR to the XOR, allow SOAR users to XOR was hit with this specific user, with the SecOps user, and so that's why I was able to access it even though it was blocked under the regular user. So that shows that this does work. It's done in the same policies as you would do with the rest of your Palo Alto firewall, and that's what makes clientless VPNs really great, is that you can integrate it with the other features in the Palo Alto firewall, whether that's URL filtering, threat prevention, etc. And that really allows you to add defense in depth using this single device, this consolidated device, rather than trying to have a bunch of different devices in which one expands your attack surface, but also just makes management a lot more complex as you have several different devices to manage. Here your policies are managed right here in the single place to these different applications, and this provides the additional level of protection over authentication, but it also allows you to add those additional protections from threat prevention, like I mentioned earlier. So that's really the benefit that using this as your application portal provides, and then also allows you to monitor it here. And you can monitor those activities very granularly, not only with the source user, but specific IPs, etc. The source IP, the true source IP, as well as the NATed source IP and the destination. So that really allows you to have really great visibility and control over applications within your environment. And that's one of the real benefits of the clientless VPN. So let me know what you think of the clientless VPN. If you think that this is potentially a good substitute for or a good replacement for other application portals, and what features you might be interested in adding to the clientless VPN, please let me know, and feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you very much for your time and for watching this video, and I will release new content on Palo Alto Networks hardware and software soon. Thank you very much.